There was a young woman at the door, just standing there in tears. I said, "I think you have the wrong house," and proceeded to shut the door. Then the girl yells, "Wait, are you Valerie's sister?" Laura looks at the girl like a deer in headlights, slightly reopening the door, and freezes, not saying a word. The girl then continues and says, "Valerie is my best friend, and I haven't heard from her." Laura takes a deep breath, a sigh of relief, and invites the girl in. "What's your name?" Laura asks. The girl replies, "I'm so sorry. I'm Roxy Bowen, and I know it's really early, but Valerie gave me your address a long time ago. She told me that you were all the family that she had in the world, and made me promise. She made me promise her that I would find you if anything ever happened to her. I don't know if anything has happened. It's just not like her to be missing. I talk to her every day." Laura then says, "Well, you're right. I'm her sister, but we kind of grew apart and went our own separate ways when our grandmother passed a few years ago. I have something to tell you, but before I do, I need you to tell me everything you know about my sister. What she has been doing with her life, who she has been hanging around with, and where she spends most of her time. I need to know anything and everything that you know about my sister." Long story short, Roxy told Laura everything. Being that Val was Roxy's best friend, she knew everything, from the drugs to the parties, and even how Paul stole her business. Roxy had met Valerie way before she even went into business with Paul, so she's seen the rise and fall of her best friend Val. Roxy went on to tell her how they met shopping in Macy's one day, and Val picked up this handbag and asked, "Does this look cute on me?" Roxy said Val was a free spirit. She didn't meet a stranger. They kicked it off from there and have not just been friends, but best friends ever since. Roxy and Laura talked and talked and talked. It was around lunchtime, and they were both getting hungry. Laura said, "Let's go up the street to Chili's. My treat. Once we eat, I'll tell you everything." So after they finished eating, Laura tells Roxy that Valerie is gone. Roxy says, "Gone? What do you mean gone?" They proceeded to walk outside to the parking lot. Laura told Roxy how she went by Valerie's house and she was dead. Roxy fell to her knees crying. She couldn't believe her best friend was gone. Laura pulled her up off the ground and held her in her arms. "Let me drive you home," Laura said. Later on that night, Laura went to one of the strip clubs that Roxy worked at to hang up some lady lace flyers. Yes, Roxy was a 23-year-old stripper. On Laura's way home, she thought, how did Valerie end up around these type of people? Our grandmother did not raise us like that. Laura pulled up at her home and paced her floors, thinking about Roxy. Laura could tell that Roxy loved Valerie just as much as she did. Laura wondered if she could use Roxy to help her find Valerie's killer. So many thoughts were going through Laura's mind. Would Roxy be a help, or would she just get in her way? Besides, she just met her and was still weary about putting her full trust in Roxy. Laura was exhausted, and before she knew it, she fell asleep on her couch. Early the next morning, Laura went out and bought some professional pink handcuffs, pepper spray, and some more toys to add to her basement that she had recently turned into a sex dungeon. She went to several stores, preparing herself for her next customer. She went into the gun store, and she also went and bought her another pager. She thought about Valerie and all the people that she was involved with. Laura knew that she needed a pager for Lady Lace and a separate pager for herself. And it was a good thing, because the next day, Roxy came by Laura's house again. Laura explained to Roxy that she was taking the time to grieve her sister and that she could not just be popping up at her house. Laura gave Roxy her pager number and told her if she needed her, to page her from now on. Laura knew she couldn't have Roxy just popping up at any time, especially if she was turning tricks with the customer. Roxy had no idea that Laura was Lady Lace. Around 2 a.m., Laura heard her pager going off. It was Lady Lace's pager. She thought, okay, it's time to focus. Roxy had been sort of a distraction, but Laura was on a mission, and she would not let anything or Roxy knock her off her game. Laura drove out to a payphone and called the number from Lady Lace's pager. A man said, "Hello?" Laura zoned in, changed her voice, and said seductively, "This is Lady Lace, where you get all your fantasies in one place." The man said, "I'm at the bar on 23rd. Can you take me now?" Laura gave him her address and told him to come by 2:45 and hung up. Laura got ready. She put on her sexy red lingerie with her 4-inch red high heels. She was ready. As soon as she finished her makeup, she heard a knock on the door. She looked through her peephole, and it was a man. She said to herself, "Okay, you got this." She slowly opened the door. His mouth dropped. He couldn't believe how beautiful this call girl was. Most prostitutes look drugged out and washed up. He thought, oh yeah, I'm going to make her my regular. She said, "Don't be shy. Come on in." He walked by her. He reeked of alcohol. She told him, "Follow me to my bedroom." She sat him on the bed and asked what he wanted her to do. "What is your final fantasy?" He just wanted a blowjob. She said, "That's it? That's your fantasy?" She explained very sexually, "Any whore can give you a blowjob. Follow me." She takes him downstairs to her sex dungeon. She set him down, slowly unzipped his pants, and says, "Have you ever had BDSM with a blowjob. She pulls out a cute pair of pink handcuffs, dangles them on her breast, leans into him. He grabs her by her waist and starts sucking her nipples. She pulls his arms up, handcuffing him, kicks the chair back. His drunken body falls to the floor. She pulls his pants to his ankles. She goes down on him. She is giving him what he wants. She felt him climaxing. As he gets harder and harder, she pulls out her pepper spray that she had tucked into her lace around her inner thigh. Before he could come, she gets up, sprays him directly in his face. He screams. He's handcuffed, eyes on fire, and his pants at his ankles. He can't get up. While he is rolling on the floor, she grabs her gun with her silencer attached and shoots him in the head. It's over. She did it. And this time, she liked it. Laura was becoming Lady Lace. She was changing. She was heartless, cold, emotionless. All she could do was think about how them dirty cops covered up her sister's killer. Once again, her mortician friend came by, but this time they put the body in the trunk, and the next morning, he drove the car to a junkyard. Before they left, Laura paid him and gave him an extra $50 to bribe the man at the junkyard. She needed that car crushed immediately. Laura drove the mortician's car while he drove the client's car with the body wrapped up in the trunk. After the car was crushed, the mortician got in the car with Laura and she drove them back to her house. Her friend left and Laura turned on the 12 o'clock news while she made her some lunch. The reporters were talking about a missing man whose car was found in the forest covered with branches and debris. Laura knew that they had zero leads because they were asking for anyone to come forward if they had any information. Hearing about what she had done on the news excited Laura. It gave her a sense of revenge for her sister's death. Laura started to feel unstoppable. She loved the fact that the detectives couldn't figure out the real cases because most were crooked and trying to cover up their own sins. Around 11 p.m. her pager went off, but this time it was Laura's. Laura drove out to a payphone, and it was Roxy, and she was hysterical. Laura said, "What's wrong? Calm down. I can't understand you." Laura asked her where she was. Roxy said she was at the strip club and overheard two men talking about Val. Laura said, "Stay there. I'll be there in 20 minutes and come outside to my car so we can talk in person." Laura drove out to the club and waited on Roxy to come out. Roxy comes out to the car and gets in. Laura said, "Okay, tell me what happened. What did you hear?" Roxy was a little nervous to tell Laura, but after she overheard that conversation, she knew why the detectives pinned Val's murderer on someone else. Roxy had been in the sex industry for a while, and she knew the people, the names, the faces, the lawyers, the cops, and all the wealthy men who came in and out of the club. Roxy didn't tell her everything, but she did tell her that Val's killer, Michael, is the brother of the detective who she gave the tape to. Laura was pissed. She thanked Roxy and told her not to tell anyone else what she knew. A few more years went by, and on March the 9th, 1982, Lady Lace had murdered a total of 4 men. She was starting to get bored. Time and time again, she seen the reports on the news about the killings, but she was not getting the exposure that she wanted. Lady Lace wanted to make a statement. June 2nd, 1982, Laura decided to sell her house. She was tired of Roxy popping up at her house. Besides, she had all the information that she needed from her. Laura bought a mansion in Palm Beach, and she bought what she called working house in Tampa Bay, where she would meet her customers. Now in her mansion, and having her working home in Tampa Bay, she felt refreshed and was ready to make a statement. 16 days later, she had a page at 1:15 a.m. on Lady Lace's pager. That was her first kill in her new working house. She called her mortician friend to burn the body, and once again, like clockwork, they took the vehicle off to an isolated area. But this time, Lady Lace would leave a red piece of lace on the dashboard of his car. She bought over 20 sets of lacy lingerie in every color. She never wore these sets. She just used them to cut up. She decided that if she couldn't destroy the vehicles at the junkyard, then she would ditch them and leave her distinctive signature, which would be a piece of lace on the dash. Laura was intelligent and very wealthy. Money was not an issue for her. She knew that she had to use her money and be smart about how she moved. Although she wanted exposure, she didn't want to be caught. She changed her appearance often and took a 3-week wait in self-defense class. She used her money to keep detectives guessing her next move. Over the next several years, Laura had bought 3 other houses, all in different states, one in the Midwest, one up north, and one out east. She hit 1 to 2 men in each city, leaving the authorities confused and always guessing her next move.
Okay, task force, 6 p.m., 6:18.
In the summer of 1983, the body of Michael Riley was found face down in this Hancock County stream. At that time, it was one of a handful of killings of men connected.
Since 1985, the bodies of 4 other men, either residents of Indianapolis or with connections to this city, have been found near creek beds in Preble County, which is also near Dayton.
Looking back through the Wish TV archives, we found a series of stories in the 1980s and 1990s about murders.
I-70 between Indianapolis and Dayton, the well-traveled road of a killer targeting men as victims.
The uncertainty is the hardest part, not knowing.
The mother of Roger Allen Goodlett has been making up flyers, making phone calls, anything to help find her 34-year-old son.
The news labeled the serial killer as the Lace Killer, due to Lady Lace leaving a piece of lace on the dashboard of the victims' vehicles. Detectives narrowed the killer down to it possibly being a female due to the lace. Sometimes the lace was black, red, pink, but other times it was white, blue, or yellow. The color of the lace was never consistent, but there was always lace left behind. Lady Lace was now a worldwide serial killer. She was excited to be known as a global phenomenon. In 1986, Lady Lace comes back to South Florida. She hadn't forgot about Michael. She seen him at a strip club and knew that after all these years, he was still up to no good. He preyed on vulnerable women, targeting sex workers, drug addicts, and prostitutes. Knowing that their disappearances or deaths often went uninvestigated, she decided to make herself known at the club one night while he was there. At the bar, sitting alone, she pretended to cry. Michael loved a broken woman. He went and sat next to her. He had no idea that she was the sister of Valerie. Besides, Valerie wasn't his only victim. He asked, "Can I buy you a drink?" She replied, "I think I've already had too many," and gets up, stumbling, pretending to be very intoxicated. Michael follows her. She has him right where she wants him. He asks, "How can I help you?" She said, "I just want to go home, but I don't have any money for a cab." Michael says, "Let me take you home. I was about to leave anyways. Do you want me to give you a ride?" Lady Lace stumbles out the club and says, "Where is your car?" Michael grabs her and walks her to his car. "What's your address?" Lady Lace said, "Turn left here. I'll show you the way." They pull up to her working house in Tampa Bay. Michael walks her to her door. Lady Lace is pretending to be so drunk that Michael invites himself in. Lady Lace stumbles to her bedroom and falls on her bed pretending to be passed out. Michael locks the front door, goes into her room, and starts to rip off her clothes. She let him. He gets up to take off his pants, and as soon as he bends down to remove his pants, Lady Lace reaches under her pillow. One blow to his back. He falls down. She shoots him again in his leg. He's screaming. She stands over him, shoots again in his shoulder, and says, "You killed my sister!" Then shoots him in his head. She quickly wrapped up his body in plastic, got dressed, and called her mortician friend to come pick up his body. While she was waiting on her mortician friend to come, she drove his car into the garage. They loaded his body into the trunk. She drove Michael's car and followed her friend to the cremation center. They ditched his car. She left a white piece of lace with his blood on it on his dashboard. Her friend drove her back to the club so she could pick up her car, and he left. She gets in her car and drives home to clean up the evidence. The next day, Lady Lace calls Roxy, but her number was disconnected. She hadn't heard from Roxy since she sold her house in 1982. It had been almost 5 years now. Lady Lace waited until around 1 a.m. and drove out to the strip club that she remembered her working at. And yes, Roxy was still at the same club. She was so excited to see Laura and gave her new number. But Lady Lace only wanted information about Paul. Unfortunately, Lady Lace wouldn't be able to get her hands on Paul. Roxy said he had died from an overdose 9 months ago. Michael's brother, the detective, finally got wind of his brother's death, and the stress took a toll on him, especially being that he was much older than Michael. The dirty detective ended up having a massive heart attack. He was rushed to the hospital, but he fell into a deep coma. 6 months later, his wife decided to pull the cord. One morning, Laura called Roxy and asked her where she was. Roxy said she was at the Motel 9 in Kissimmee. Laura told her to stay put, that she was coming to get her. Laura told Roxy to get all her stuff because she had a surprise for her. Roxy was so excited and threw all of her clothes, high heels, and makeup in a suitcase and left the motel with Laura. Roxy asked, "So what's the surprise?" Laura said, "I'm leaving town for good this time. I sold my mansion, but I paid off the house in Tampa Bay, and we are going to get it signed over in your name. I want you to have it." Roxy was so excited. No one had ever given her anything. Roxy never had a fair chance in life, being that she was born into this world by a drug addict and never knew her father. Knowing that Roxy's very first home was the working house that Lady Lace killed Michael in, gave Lady Lace some type of sick satisfaction. Roxy did hear about Michael's death, but had no idea that Laura was Lady Lace, or that she would be the new owner of the house that he was murdered in. Lady Lace had murdered a total of 11 men by 1987. Lady Lace is still at large.